بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين صلى الله وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. Tonight's Quranic supplication has to do with an extreme state of need. I want you all to think about when you're at a very or an extremely vulnerable position and you're in a state of extreme need. You have circumstances that have brought you to your knees. And we're not talking about just something minor, but there are so many cases and scenarios. If the brothers in the back can stay silent while the lecture is going on, inshallah. So there are situations in the world where, you come to a dead end in your life. You come to a position where you've tried everything and then you're just you've exhausted all the means and there's nothing left for you. But there's always something left. That nothing that is left for you, it really is, Allah bringing you to your knees in order for you to discover new possibilities. And that's the power of Allah Azza wa Jal. So this particular dua is a desperate plea for help. It's a dua of someone who was at its most vulnerable, someone who had nothing left. And that's one of the most beloved supplications to Allah Azza wa Jal. As we mentioned, to tie it in with yesterday's insight, that the ibada, dhikr and dua sequence, the manasik or the rituals of our ibadah, according to Imam al-Razi, they bring you to your knees, they humble you. Allah wants you to step into some discipline and break your soul. You don't want to do these things, but you have to do them. You like your own clothes, but Allah makes you put on two, ihram garments. You need to go to work. You have circumstances. Allah wants you to stop everything and come for Jummah. Allah wants you to stop what you're doing and come to pray. And you're going through these rituals. So the insight into the rituals, they're designed to bring your soul down, to break your soul, to bring you in that broken, needy state. In order for that to be followed by dhikr, or to be included with dhikr, where now the remembrance of Allah fills your soul. And now with the dhikr, your soul rises. And then when you rise to a state, now you make dua and you call upon Allah. So in this particular dua, it's a dua of Musa alayhi salam when he came to Madian. And it's in Surah Al-Qasas, chapter 28 of the Quran. And I'll summarize the story in the interest of time. Musa was escaping circumstances. His life in Egypt had come to an end. He was raised in the palace, but now he was no longer welcome in the palace. He was a fugitive. He had left. And in that situation, he got involved in an altercation where he accidentally killed someone. And that word got to the authorities. And then he was informed by a well-wisher that they're coming to arrest you. So this is a man on the run from his own country, his own home, from his own family. He's a fugitive. So in this situation, he escapes Egypt. And he goes to a land that wasn't under the dominion of Pharaoh. And that's in the Sinai Peninsula, Madian. So he comes to this place, and according to some of the Mufassirin, it took him 8 days of running to get there. So he escaped, he fled from Egypt as a fugitive. Now he's in a foreign land, and he sees a scene where now he's broken, he's hungry, he has nothing with him, absolutely. And Ibn Abbas said that even he didn't have any shoes, because his sandals had worn out in that long journey. So now he's in a vulnerable state in a foreign land. He doesn't know where he's going. He's just running away. He's fleeing. He has no real direction in his mind. So in his estimation, he's at a dead end. But Allah creates circumstances. So he came to a well, and there were people watering the well, and there were two women who were standing back, and he asked them, what is going on. And they said that we can't do anything until these men leave. So he went, he got involved, he helped them with the water, and they left. And then Allah says, فَسَقَى لَهُمَا ثُمَّ تَوَلَّى إِلَى الظِّلِّ. So he, after giving them water, he retired to the shade. And tawalla ila dhilli means this must have been the heat of dhuhr time, the midday, where the heat is so intense in that region, you can't stand in the sun. You'll get a seizure or something will happen. So you really have to find shade. Anyone who's been to Umrah, there's so many brothers that went there recently. 2 weeks ago, we had to pray Jummah in the street. And really the sun in that land is different from the sun here. In America, it doesn't matter. You're standing in the shade or the sun. It has really no power. But in those lands, sitting in the sun, the direct sun is so hot and it has adverse consequences. So he found some shade. And in that temporary comfort of the shade, he's sitting down, and just imagine his state. He's hungry, he's alone, he's a fugitive, his life is in danger. He has nowhere to go, no place to turn. So in that situation, that broken, vulnerable state, some beautiful words came out of his mouth, which was really his heart speaking. So his heart spoke, and he said these words. He said, Rabbi inni lima anzalta ilayya min khairin faqir. My Lord, for whatever you send down to me of good, I am in great need. My Lord, for whatever you would send down to me of good, I am in great need. So these words are so powerful. The reason Allah shares them, they're powerful words, and they symbolize what dua is supposed to be. So first of all, this is spoken as, there's a proverb, they say lisanul hal. There's lisanul maqal and lisanul hal. Lisanul maqal is your tongue that expresses words. Lisanul hal is where your heart expresses the words. Your situation is such, you know, these words or expressions come out naturally of your state. So lisanul hal asdaqu min lisanil maqal is a proverb. When your heart speaks, whether it's a dua or adhkar, much more powerful than when your tongue speaks. And this is really Musa's heartfelt prayer coming from the inner recesses of his soul when he is at his most vulnerable state. And that is why this dua is so special. And that is why it got the response that it got. So this is, from this, lisanul hal, what insights can we draw into dua? You know, this tradition of memorized duas is not lisanul hal. So people who memorize duas, we need to deconstruct that idea. It's not wrong. But the words that you memorize, they're not coming from your heart. But when you're in your own situation and the words come out naturally, you're connected with Allah, that has an entirely different effect. So the sunnah of dua is to speak from your heart. And that is why one of the factors that our ulama say, Ibn al-Qayyim mentions in his books, this ilhahu fi dua, when the dua comes from the recesses of the soul and you just keep repeating, that's a very special dua. Those are real supplications. That's where Allah hears you. But when you memorize words, you don't know their meaning, you don't even know what you're saying, that really is a tragedy. And our culture has developed such that that's the way we make dua today. I remember attending a janazah once of someone we knew, a distant relative. And unfortunately, he lived a life where he refused to pray. He never prayed. And we spent our whole lifetime trying to convince him because he was part of the extended family. But he just had something in him. He just refused to pray. So he never prayed. He had ideas about Islam that, were not that great. So I remember attending his janazah, and the imam, they got an imam to lead the janazah, and the janazah he was making dua, Ya Allah, for every sajda that this man made, every salah that he did, make him closer to you, and so on. So everyone's saying Ameen and crying. So that's not dua. Those are memorized mechanical prayers, and they don't apply to the hal, the situation. So lisanul hal asdaqu min lisanil maqal. So this is something that we really need to focus on. So now this dua, this beautiful dua, let's look at this dua. There are different ways of asking things. And the words here are slightly jumbled, you might notice. Rabbi inni lima anzalta ilayya min khairin faqir. So if you need something, so some of the ulama, they say he was asking for food. Others said maybe something else. But the word used is khair, is something deeper. So if you were to ask for good, let's say, or you would say, Ya Allah, give me food. Ya Allah, give me some goodness. Allah, give me relief, right? But the way he expressed Musa alayhi salam shows you his connection with Allah Azza wa Jal. The way he expressed his words and the sequence he used, he said, Ya Allah, for whatever you can send me of good, I am in great need. So the object comes before the subject. So that would be like even in English, how can sometimes we say things like that? We change the sequence of the sentences. So like if you have shararti children, right? And the mother is fed up with the child and she'll say, wait till your father comes home, right? So you can say that in different ways. But if you want to emphasize what your father is going to do with you, she might say something like, what your father is going to do for you, to you, just wait for it. So you bring the object first and you bring the subject and the verb later. Or sometimes you emphasize, if your father is known to be someone very harsh or strict, your father, wait till he comes home, right? You could say, wait for your father to come home. That has less power, less meaning. So sometimes we change the way we say things. We change the order of our expressions because of our hearts, because of how we feel. And Musa was amazing. He really was at a dead end. He needed help. And that's why he said the first thing, Inni lima anzalta ilayya min khairin. Whatever you have sent for me and will send for me of good, I am in great need. So this is a beautiful, beautiful supplication, heartfelt prayer, and it's something that you can really imagine. Imagine yourself in that situation. Imagine the state, the hal of Musa alayhi salam, that broken state. And the lesson for us, Allah wants us to be in those broken states. And sometimes that's the wisdom of these circumstances. People say, why do these things happen to us? Why was this earthquake here? Why was this happening? Why did I become tested with this situation? Allah is trying to bring you to your knees. Allah is trying to, like He did for Musa alayhi salam, bring you to a broken state where He can raise you up again, where you can call upon Him. So that's really something amazing when we think about it. And Musa alayhi salam, he didn't ask for something specific. Again, the same theme from yesterday. Sometimes your trust in Allah is so much, you're not going to list the specifics. Well, Allah, I need this, this, and this. But Musa, and he didn't even ask for anything particular. He said, he expressed his broken state. He's faqir. He's needy before Allah Azza wa Jal. And he just expressed these beautiful words where heart was speaking and Allah heard his prayer. So he was expressing the inner emotions from his heart. And that's something we need to learn how to do in our prayers and our supplications. And sometimes there's a wisdom to leave things non-specific, like we said yesterday, the beautiful supplication from yesterday. Imam al-Qurtubi, for instance, says, فَعَرَّضَ بِالدُّعَاءِ وَلَمْ يُصَرِّحْ بِالسُّؤَالِ. He said this dua, but he didn't ask for anything in particular. And that's because of his trust in Allah. He trusted Allah. He had a connection with Allah. He knew Allah is the one who can change his circumstances. Allah is the one who can bring him out of this dead end and bring circumstances that are different from that. And he's just ready for whatever good that Allah is going to give to him. And what kind of response did he get? SubhanAllah. We look at these verses, immediately after that, what did Allah say? فَجَاءَتْهُ إِحْدَاهُمَا تَمْشِي عَلَى اسْتِحْيَاءٍ. So the conjunction Allah uses fa and not wow. So you could say wow, and then one of the two ladies came to Musa. And that could have been after a week, after a few days, but the word used is, the conjunction is fa, which means immediately. So when Musa, at this vulnerable state at the bottom of his life, he expresses this, immediately the answer came. So what was the first answer to the dua? One of the two sisters came, قالت إن أبي يدعوك. She says, my father calls you. ليجزيك أجر ما سقيت لنا, to give you a reward for what you helped us out with. So she called him, and then he followed her to the house. So the first answer of this dua, Musa found shelter. He was looking for a place to settle down or a place to just rest. So he found that. He found shelter from the sun, from the circumstances. He's in a foreign land. Now he could be with someone who's local. And now he can think about what to do next. So that's the first answer to the dua of Musa alayhi salam. So then he went to the house, and the second answer to the dua, he found shelter. The second thing Allah gave him, employment. Because we know one of the sisters, they said, look, inna khayra man istajarta al-qawi al-amin. Oh, my father, why don't you hire him? We need help. So give him a job, hire him, and we know the best person to be hired is someone who's powerful, who has the capability, and he's trustworthy. So that's something amazing. So he found a job. He found employment. So not only did he find shelter in his situation, the second answer from Allah in this beautiful dua, he found employment. He found, a place where he can settle down for a bit and he can earn something and build something up. And that's something very, very powerful. So that was the second answer of the dua. And the third answer of the dua was he found a home. So a home is different from shelter. A home is different from a house, right? What's the difference between a house and a home? A house is the walls that you live in, whatever square feet you have, the walls, the lawn, and that's the house. House can be sold and it goes here and there. What is a home? A home is family. Home is where your heart is, where your family is. And it's not just the walls. So Musa first got the house, he got a job, but then he built a home because he was, we know the story in the verses that he was offered one of the two daughters in marriage. So now that he got married, he was offered a home and he built a home. And now he became, he lived in that home. So it became a home rather than a house. And there's an expression in Arabic, ad-daru darukum. Your house is where your house is, where your family is, where your wife is, where your spouse is. And that really is the home. It's not these buildings that we emphasize. If you move today and your family moves to a different house, that house is no longer yours. You might have some memories, but where your family lives, where your parents are, where your mother is, where your father is, that's your home. So Musa was given this amazing answer, and look at his situation. He had nowhere to turn. Allah gave him everything. And Allah gave him something incredible. Allah gave him a place to stay. Allah gave him a home, a wife. Allah gave him employment. And this person was a pious person. We don't know who he was. Some of the Mufassirin say he was Shu'aib, the prophet. But it seems unlikely because the way the story is, Shu'aib was a great prophet. So these people seem to be unknown. It would be unimaginable, someone living in the outskirts of town, and then their daughters come to a place and no one really helps them. That would be a prophet. So it was probably not the prophet Shu'aib. But Allah gave Musa a stay of 8 to 10 years where he was preparing him for something else, for his mission of prophethood. So this is something incredible. Allama Iqbal said the words, Jisko koi Shu'aib aayi muyassar, to Shabani se kalimi do kadam hai. So he had a good understanding of this phase of Musa's life, although he felt his name was Shu'aib. But he says, anyone who finds a Shu'aib in your life, then going from Shabani, which is being a shepherd, to Kalimi, being a person speaking to Allah, is only 2 steps. So that kind of person, if you find in your life, a person that can give you tarbiyah, that can give you that training, is something incredible. You can go from here to all the way up here. And that's what Allah did with Musa alayhi salam. So beautiful supplication. I'll stop here in the interest of time. But so many great lessons from here, being non-specific and general in your prayers, making the du'as from your heart rather than from memorized pages. And really nothing bothers me as much as seeing, I was in Umrah, just everyone's reading from pages. They don't understand what they're saying in Tawaf and in Sa'i, and they're just reading page after page of du'as. Allah will reward them. That's something good they're doing. It is worship, but it's not real du'a. It's not the essence of du'a. So it is something that might have benefit, but that's not what du'a is. Du'a is that which comes from the heart. And same thing in this verse. Allah is not asking us to say, Rabbi inni lima anzalta ilayya min khairin faqir. The lesson here in these verses is not for you to memorize these words and to say them, and you will get what Musa got. That's not how it works. But Allah is sharing you insights about the state, the emotional state of Musa, and what Allah did for him, and how you're supposed to turn to Allah, how you're supposed to express yourself. So you learn those lessons and you come up with your own dua. You come up with your own expressions from the inner recesses of your soul. That's what dua is. And that's why you pray in the middle of the night. Allah descends in the middle of the night asking who is there awake, who has needs, who is turning to me so that I can respond to them. So that dua should be personal. Those supplications should be from your heart. And they should be where your heart, you pour your heart out before Allah Azza wa Jal. May Allah give us that kind of dua. May Allah give us Laylatul Qadr in the last few nights. Wa akhiru da'wana anil hamdulillahi rabbil alamin.